Polygon is known for making some pretty wild looking bikes, and this new downhill bike is no exception. This is the Collosus DH, and it uses 6-bar suspension. And we've spent some time on this back around Crankworks. Fast forward 6 months, and Polygon's finally launching this bike. We've seen the Collosus appear at a Red Bull Rampage as well as multiple World Cups. Now, that's a lot to ask of one bike. There are some changes you can make on here to the suspension setup as well as the geometry. So we're gonna see what type of changes work best for these slippery downhill tracks up here on Cyprus. Blistering pace, oh my God. You know, this actually feels quite a bit different from the version of the bike that I rode at Crankworks. And they said there weren't any changes to the geometry, but it feels quite a bit steeper. And these tires, they're just so bloody firm and glance off everything. They're okay at speed, but if you're not going fast, they just glance. They don't want to stay on the ground. Okay, so it feels a little bit different than the bike I rode back at Crankworks. I'm not sure if that change they made to the frame tweaked the geometry at all, but I'm gonna go back to the low position for these downhill tracks here, and then we're gonna change out the tires right away. Those are just too firm. They kind of glance off the round rocks and polished roots up here. And another change we made during Crankworks was going from 2 volume spacers that came in the shock up to 4. So we've already got those installed, so we cheated a little bit with the setup, but it's one thing that we noticed right away. Okay, so we have some much stickier tires on, Magic Mary up front. We've moved the bike back to the low setting, so feeling a lot more confident about this second run. I love the bike in the summer. Obviously the conditions are not ideal today, but we're gonna give her a go. Oh my God, these tires are so much better. So much more confidence, more predictability. Can really lean them over. Bike's riding a lot slacker. Way better at speed. Still a little bit loose out back. Boy, she is slack though. Yeah, feeling way better on this bike. Yeah, this thing can go. All right. Yeah, lap 2. Obvious, massive change with the tires. The rear one, still, you know, the same tread, but a softer compound. It still has that tendency to like knife and kind of fall over. So it's a little bit skatey if you're kind of trail braking through an off camber or a flat corner, but it does have really good bite. The front's way more predictable. We moved the shock to the lower flip chip position in the back here. So that just increases the wheelbase, slackens the head angle. So it's just better for attacking faster, rougher, chunkier sections of trail. You have a lot more front wheel ahead of you. So you feel like you can just plow over things instead of being precariously up on top. That steep setting, well, it's not that steep either, so it would still be good for, you know, bike park, trails, free riding. And then talking about free riding, the chainstay, it's 445. Polygon doesn't change that per size. They're 445 across the 4 different sizes. Right now, the bike comes with a 27.5er wheel, so it's quite maneuverable, The overall essence of the bike, or like the stance I would say, is that it's quite low. So you feel grounded, but the shortish rear end still makes it maneuverable. Easy to turn, easy to jump, pick up off the ground. And then if you wanted to, there is a dropout flip chip, which raises the position of the rear axle for a 29-inch rear wheel. So you could run that for a faster race setup if you wanted. I'm riding a medium. The reach is about 460-ish. And this feels pretty balanced to me. If I was racing, you know, faster paced tracks, I might want to move up to a large. The gap in sizing is not that much different between a medium and a large. You could use aftermarket headset cups to kind of fine tune that fit for you, which makes a lot of sense for a downhill bike. So we just kind of ran you through the different setup options you can get with the Collosus, and that is the 2-position geometry adjustment, as well as the 2 different rear wheels you can run on the bike, and sort of the benefits or the setup options you might want for different scenarios. And talking a little bit about the specs, it's a pretty valuable proposition. So you start with the DHM, which is the entry-level build. That goes for $3,500 US. And that has RockShox Boxer base suspension, TRP brakes, sort of no-name alloy wheels, but with Novatec hubs, and a SRAM GX downhill drivetrain. So all pretty like standard components, easy to service, easy to find spare parts for. You could even upgrade those over time because you still get the same Collosus frame with both builds. There's only the aluminum option. And so that means that the DHR, the one we're riding, has Fox factory suspension, fancy DT Swiss wheels, a SRAM X01 DH drivetrain, although it does have aluminum cranks, which I'm a fan of. You know, they just generally tend to take much more of a shit kicking. And then you still have the TRP brakes, as well as the same tires on both builds. So that'd be the first thing I would upgrade on either spec. And then the shiny, fancy blue Collosus DHR that we're riding, that comes in at $4,999 US dollars. Now, if you look across other brands, you get a very similar spec with the YT2S Core 4. The only difference being that one has a carbon frame and carbon cranks, but it costs $1,000 more. So both of them are pretty equal in value. It just kind of depends on if you want to splash out for that extra cash and go for the lighter carbon frame. On the flip side, the Collosus and the 2S ride very differently. I would say the 2S is a lot steeper and higher in the front, although they do both have a low center of gravity and a short chainstay. They both have a high and low geo position, as well as accommodate both rear wheel sizes. Although the one edge in terms of adjustment that the YT has over the Polygon is the chainstay length adjustment. Now it's only a nominal 5 millimeters, but it might help you dial in that particular setup you're looking for wherever you're riding. We made 2 other small changes when moving to the slack position, and that was just repositioning the bars so they were at the same kind of angle that I was used to, and then also slowed down the rebound. And I think that's probably just because I'm starting to ride a bit faster. Despite the snowy conditions, the trails are actually pretty decent lower down. So we're gonna crack on with lap number 3. What I really like about this bike is how smooth the rear end is. It's, you know, that 6-bar linkage, so it kind of feels like a horse link, almost like Specialized. So we were talking about how smooth this bike is, and part of that comes from the 6-bar suspension. This feels a little bit more disconnected. You don't get as much pedal kickback. All right, so we just wrapped up our 3rd lap, a very wet lap. Overall, I think the Collosus has a lot of value. It has all the adjustments you need to dial in different setups for different terrain, different riders. The spec is amazing for the price. And the suspension, it performs. It's very comfortable, it has good tracking. This is gonna be well suited to a rider who wants a downhill bike in their fleet, or they want to save some money for some extra tires and go racing and take this bike to a pretty high level. You let us know in the comments which Collosus build you'd go for and what parts you'd change. That's it for now. Stay tuned to Pinkbike because we have more downhill content coming.